All right, so once you have pgadmin open, just put in your password. Okay, and then just expand out the server list. Make sure you're using PostgreSQL 14. Put in your password for this. Just go to your databases. Let's see, this is section 2. So we'll continue to use this, but we will create a new schema. So just right-click and create schema. And I'm going to call this day 2. You can call it whatever you'd like. It's really up to you. Just hit save. And then once you've created the new schema, just right-click on it and go to Query Tool. This will take just a moment to load. But just to recap, once you've signed in, go to Servers, go to PostgreSQL 14, go to whatever database you're using for this class, then create a new schema, call it day 2, and from there, right-click on it, open up Query Editor. Okay? So we're going to create a new table, and I think it makes the most sense to create a table for items. So I'm going to call the table item. It's going to have 3 columns. One of the columns is going to be item number. One of them is going to be item price. And one of them is going to be item quantity. All right. What do we know about these variables in terms of their data type? Are they going to be text or are they going to be numeric? So an item number is a number. Item price is also going to be a number, right? And then item quantity, we know the quantity of how much something we have, that's also going to be a number. Let's talk a little bit more about these data types. Item number, is that going to be a whole number, or is that going to be a decimal number? And we're probably just going to call it a big int. What about item price? Do prices have a decimal? They do. So we'll call this a float. Okay, and then finally, for item quantity, we're going to assume we can't have a fraction of an item. Okay, so that means we can only have whole numbers of the item, which means we can get away with calling this a big int as well. Okay, which of these 3 do you think makes the most sense to be the primary key? Okay, item number probably makes the most sense to be the primary key because it should be able to uniquely identify each item. Item price is not unique to an item, is it? At least we're not going to assume it is. Item quantity is not unique to an item either. Item number is unique to an item. All right, any questions so far? Does everyone understand at a basic level what we're doing? Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and create that table. So just a reminder from previous classes, we're making a new table. Okay, we're always going to start off with saying create table, and then the table name is going to be item. Okay, first column is going to be item no, and it is going to be a big int. Okay, second column is going to be item price. It's going to be a float. Third column is going to be item quantity. It's going to be a big int. Okay, our primary key we've already said that's going to be item no. Okay, is that exactly what we're going to use to create the table? I think so. So I'm just going to type it out. Create table item, open parentheses. We know that our first column is going to be item no, big int. Second column is going to be item price, float. We know our third column is going to be item quantity, big int. Then we specify our primary key. Okay, that is going to be item no. All right. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, and we in fact created the table. Now, how do I verify that I created the table? I want to verify that I created the table and then I have the columns inside the table. How do I do that? It's what type of statement? We need to play hangman. Alyssa. Select, exactly. Okay, so we're going to select everything, which we use with star, of course, also referred to as asterisk, from item. It's just going to verify that we created the table. All right, and we in fact did. Okay, so as we see here, we have our three columns, item no, item price, item quantity. We have their data types listed, and then we have the primary key. Now you'll notice that it says it's a double precision. That just means it has a decimal point. Okay, so don't be thrown off by that not saying float. All right. Any questions up to this point? Did I lose anyone so far? Is everyone following? So again, all I did is create a table and then select everything from the table. Next, we want to insert a handful of values. So what are the first two words that I'm going to type? If I want to add rows to an existing table, what are the first two words? Okay, insert is the first word. What's the second word? Not update. So I'm going to type insert what? Not values. Into. And then I say which table I'm inserting into, which is going to be the item table. Okay, after that, I open up a parentheses, and I basically tell it which columns I'm going to be inserting and in which order. So I'm just going to use the order that we have up here, which is item number, item price, and item quantity. So I'm just going to type that out. Item no, comma, item price, comma, item quantity. Okay, then I hit enter, and I say values. And then what I do is I just put in the values. Since these are all numeric, it means we don't have to put them in quotes, right? If we did have a text, would we put them in single or double quotes? Single. Okay, but since all three of these are all numeric, we don't have to worry about any quotes. All right, so I'm just going to say item number 1. Someone throw me a price. $7 exactly. And let's say we have 49 of them. All right, then I get out of the parentheses, hit a comma, open up another parentheses, and this is, of course, going to allow us to add multiple items without having to retype insert into every time. All right, so we're going to do item number 2. Someone throw me a price, any price. $5.78. Okay, and how many of those do we have? 60. Okay, so item number 3. Throw me a price. Any price. $10. Okay, and someone throw me a quantity. 8. Let's keep going. Item 4. Price. $50 and quantity. Let's do one more. Item 5. Someone throw me their favorite price. Okay. My favorite price is 1 penny. Alright. I'd rather it be 0 pennies, but that wouldn't be a price, would it? Alright. How many of these do we have? Okay. Once you're finished, you just put a semicolon at the end. And again, this is just a basic insert into. Alright. So all we're doing here, we're saying insert into table, saying which columns we're doing, and then the values. Anyone lost? Is everyone following along? Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Okay. Now I forgot to put a comma here, so I need to make sure that I do that, and then I'll rerun it. Okay. So it says that I added everything in successfully, items 0 through 5. So what happens when I should run this select star from item? What should happen? It should. Okay, and in fact it does. Alright. So up to this point, we've already done everything last class, right? So, the new stuff is all about aggregate functions. Okay, so there's a couple different aggregate functions inside of SQL. We have max, we have average, which is AVG, we have min, we have count. Okay, so that's what we're gonna basically be working with. Okay, not a ton of functions or anything, but certainly having min and max, the average and the count could come in handy. Alright. Let's go ahead and see how this works. Okay, so there's two places we can use them. We're mostly going to be focused on select. So we say select, and then we say the aggregate function. So let's say we want to select the max of item price. Okay. So again, you just say function, and then you have open parentheses for what you're taking them of. All right, that's all we're doing. So I'm saying, in this case, max of item price. Okay. Just like before, we have to say where we're getting it from. So what is our table name? Item. Okay, close it off with a semicolon. And before we actually run this, what should our max item price be? Should be 50, right? You think it'll return 50? Look at that. Okay. Would it not be pretty shocking if it didn't return 50? Be kind of shocking. Okay. We can also do stuff like select the min item number from the item table. All right. And we know that our item numbers are numbered from what to what in this example? 1 to 5. So what should the minimum of 1 to 5 be? 1. And in fact, it is. All right. So we may be interested in the average item quantity inside of our item table. So we may say select average item quantity from item. Okay. And the average in this case is going to be 224.8. All right, does everyone understand that? We just took the average. Now, why is it that high? Because one of them is 1,000. All right, all the others are pretty low. But when you average these 5 numbers, you get 224.8. All right, let's say we were interested in how many rows we had. What we could do, so we could use the count, and we're going to use our primary key column. So which column is our primary key in the item table? Okay, item number is the primary key, correct? Okay, why might we choose to use the primary key for the count? Can it be missing? No. Can item price and item quantity be missing? Yeah. So again, we select the count of item number. Of course, it returns 5. Now let's say we wanted to insert some new data. Okay, let's make this class a little bit more interesting. All right, so let's say we wanted to insert into item. Let's say we want to do just the item now. And we'll say values. We'll say 6. We'll say 7. Say 8. 9. Whoops. And 10. Okay. So because item no is the only primary key, we didn't specify not null on anything, this should work perfectly fine, correct? Okay, and of course it does. So I just want to verify that it did. I'm just going to use select star from item. And we should see that we have item number 6 through 10 as well, with the other stuff missing, which it defines as null. Okay. Is everyone with me? Any questions? Yeah, Lisa. So we could take the sum. That's a function that I probably should have had up here as well. Okay. So if we wanted to take the sum of, let's say sum of item quantity, I think that makes the most sense. See how many of all items we have from item. Okay, this should provide us with the sum. Okay, and in fact it does, because we come back up here, 1,000 plus 7 plus 8 plus 60 plus 49 adds up to 1,124. All right. So thanks for mentioning that. I should have mentioned that. Any other questions? All right, so we've added in some new item number observations in a particular row, but we didn't add in other item quantity or item number. So what do you all think may happen when we do select the count of, say, item quantity? What do you think we may get? Select the count of item quantity from item. Think we'll get 5 or 10? Who votes for 5? Okay, who votes for 10? All right, it's of course 5, because there are 5 null values. A null value is missing. It means it's not inside the database, which means it does not count as an item. If we were to do the same thing, select the count of item no from item, we should get 10 now, correct? Does anyone disagree with getting 10? Okay, of course we get 10. Any questions up to this point? Okay, we don't have to just select an aggregate function. We can also select other columns along with it. Everything up to this point has been us just selecting a single aggregate function. We may want to have other stuff as well. So for instance, we may say select the item no, and we may also say average item price from item. Okay, we can certainly run this. Okay. But the problem is that when we do, there's only one average item price. Okay, whereas with item no, okay, we have 10 items. Does that make sense? So that's the problem we may face with this. Okay, so what we could do similarly is we could talk about casting. Okay, so to cast, what you do, you say as. Okay, so all you're doing is you're selecting something like average item price. If we were to do that, what this would look like is you'd say select average item price as, and you can call it whatever you wanted. So what should we call this? Someone give me a name. Okay, we could just call it item price average. We could certainly do that. So you say select average item price as, we'll call this item price average from item. Okay, and now see, when you output this, it calls it item price average as opposed to calling it just AVG. That has some benefits. Okay, so let's just compare briefly what it would look like if we didn't cast it. So we would just say select average item price from item. Okay? And see how it just changes the name of the column to AVG. So it's just a more descriptive way. All right. Of course, you get the same answer. But it just changes the name of the column that it outputs. All right, any questions up to this point? Okay, so here's another cool thing we can do. What we're doing is we're taking the item price times the item quantity and taking the sum of that. All right. If we wanted to, we could also just take item price times item quantity from the item table. Okay. And what that does is instead of taking the sum of all those, okay, what that's doing is that's going to then take it for each of our items. Okay. So I think back to item number 5, I said it's my favorite price. What's my favorite price? 1 penny. Why is 1 penny my favorite price? Because I'm cheap. All right, is that fair to say? All right, by the way, back when I was an undergrad, okay, I had an accounting professor. All right, as she suggested, you never don't pick up a penny. Okay, because if you get in that mindset of ignoring small amounts of change, you're not increasing your net worth. Okay, if you pick up a penny, that's tax-free. You're not paying taxes. I'm serious. You're not paying taxes on the penny you pick up off the ground. Okay, so you increase your net worth 1 penny. All right, I'm not telling you what to do. I think that's something to think about, though. Are you throwing away opportunities to increase your net worth? All right, you had a question, Victor? Oh, I thought I saw a hand over there. Someone else had their hand up? All right. So these two things right here, where we're basically multiplying columns together. If we multiply the item price times the item quantity, what does that give us? Gives us inventory value, right? If I have 1,000 of something, and it's worth $10 a piece, okay, that's going to be $10,000 worth of inventory. Okay. So to multiply columns in SQL, what you do is inside of select, you put what you're multiplying inside of parentheses. If you don't, then that'll see that asterisk has a wild card. You don't want that. You want it to be the multiplication symbol. So let's say I want to take the item price times the item quantity, but I want to call it inventory amount. All right? Or inventory value. Let's say inventory value. Someone walk me through how I do that. What do I type next? Who wants to volunteer? Who's brave? Anyone? So again, all we're doing, we're basically doing this. Okay? But what we're doing is we're calling it, instead of calling it just a question mark column, I want to call it the inventory value. All right, so someone walk me through that. Go for it, Josh. What do I type next? Mm-hmm. Semicolon at the end, right? Don't forget your semicolon. All right. So now, check that out. We call it inventory value. Is that kind of nifty? Why do we have null values for 6 through 10? Because if you're taking a null value times a null value, it's going to give you a null value. It's not a zero value. If we took 0 times 0, what would that give us? It would give us my hero 0. All right? So you want to make sure you're keeping that in mind. All right? Now the cool thing is we can also select the average to see what the average item value would be, or the average inventory value. Okay. So again, all this is doing, we know we have a total of 5 that aren't null. So it's taking that 1100 and it's dividing it by 5. That's basically what it's doing there. I'll pull up the homework briefly and talk about it. All right, so let's see what we could do. So what we're doing is returning columns in a certain order. So who remembers how we changed the order of the columns? Not the output of the columns, but the order they appear in the output, the columns themselves. Who can tell me that? Let's come back to what we've been working on. Okay, so we want to get them in the order of item quantity, item price, item number. That's exactly right. So let's see that though. So if we just do select star from item, it's going to be the order they were entered originally. So item number, item price, item quantity. But we want to get them in the order of, what was the order? Item quantity, item price, item number. All right, someone help me remember that. Item quantity, item price, item number. Is that right? Okay. From the item table. Check that out. That changes the order to be item quantity, item price, item number. Is that the answer to number 1? All right. Number 2. We haven't covered joins yet, have we? That'll be Wednesday's class. Number 3, I'm going to be making this number a lot easier, okay? Because it just gets a little bit complicated when you start doing joins and other stuff. So, number 4, though, provide a query to determine the mean sale quantity from the table. Let's go back. Okay, so if I want to give the mean, what's another word for mean? Average. All right. I'm glad no one said Andrew is another word for mean. So select AVG. What did it say? Sale quantity? Item quantity? What was it asking about? We'll just say item quantity. Actually, let's assume we had a sale quantity from item. All right. So if we had this column, this would work, right? That's all you're doing on number 4. So I'm going to make number 3 easier. And then number 2, you should be able to answer after Wednesday's class. Any other questions? Yeah, Kaylin. Friday, I think, is a review day. Is that right? Someone got the calendar pulled up? Review day, that's what I was thinking. So it'll be optional. Friday's optional. What do y'all think? Would y'all rather have the test be online, or would y'all rather have it be in person? Who votes for online? Who votes for in person? All right, online it is. Fine with me. It'll be basic SQL queries. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Kind of like, you know how last test we did the Excel statements? You write a basic Excel statement. Do the same thing like this. Does that sound good? All right, any other questions? Like I said, we'll pick up next class talking about joins. Apart from that, that's all I've got for today. Hope you all have a great day. See you Wednesday. Let me end the recording real quick.